Hello and welcome. I'm Mark Schultz and welcome to Building Experiences. It's been a while since the last show. It's been a couple of months, but crazy things have been happening in Adobe. We had our Adobe Summit and very exciting, lots of great content that definitely worth you looking at. But today, back into the show, back into some really cool stuff. And of course, we have some great guests joining us. So let's introduce them. Welcome, Zoran.
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
Doing well, mate. Thank you again for joining me on the show. And we actually have a couple of guests today. Let's say hello to our other good friend. Alexa, say hello.
Hi there.
All right. So kind of introducing the topic of today, but we're going to talk about building an experience on the Amazon Echo. And the whole intent here is to really talk about headless content management, of course. And Zoran and I are going to walk through an example that we built. And the key thing to look at today is that there's no custom coding in Experience Manager at all. It's purely content management. And then on the front end, taking advantage of that headless capability and bringing it into the experience. So what do you think, Zoran? Should we get straight into it?
Yeah, I reckon so.
All right. All right, so let's have a look at this. So Zoran, there's a few things to walk through as we go through. How much have you spent any time building like a voice app, like a chatbot, or a Alexa skill, or a Google Assistant?
Yeah, we've built a couple of examples for chatbots, certainly, and it's been really fun to kind of explore the conversational APIs and conversational way of doing things. It's certainly different than building your average web or mobile app. So it is lots of fun, and I'm certainly very excited for us to show people about the new ways that we can achieve this now with AEM.
Yeah, let's do that. And I think not messing with CSS classes is definitely a nice change. But all right, so look, what I think we'll do is let's get straight into sharing the screen and having a look at how that looks like. So I'm not here as an expert for the Amazon developer experience, but I'll point out a few things so we're all on the same page. Let's first of all have a look at the skill that I've built, and then we can break that down and talk about how we can add content management into that skill. So what you're seeing here, if it's new to you, is the developer console that when you log in and you go to build a skill, you go and watch the videos and it'll walk you through this. Now to test, of course I can test it on the actual device, but what I'm going to do here is just go in and let's move a few windows out of the way that you probably can't see. But let's just give this a test. So I've built a skill called Weekend. I think you've probably heard, for those people who know Adobe, we have the Weekend site as our reference site. So I've built a Amazon Echo skill around Weekend. So let's have a look at that. Open Weekend.
Hello and welcome to Weekend.
Do you offer skiing?
Undefined, take a look at what adventures we have.
There you go, live demo. Let's try that again. Do you offer skiing?
Yes, put on your boots and let's get some powder. Take a look at what adventures we have.
All right, so there's a few things there. I'll put some caveats around, how production ready my particular skill is and how it's doing error handling. But the point is that the content itself is coming from Experience Manager. Now, in some cases, it's just content that you build specifically for that skill, like the welcome greeting. In other cases, it's reusing content that you may have in other places, such as on the website. So we're going to look at both as we go through here. The key thing, if you're not familiar with how to build an Amazon skill, there's these things called invocations, and that's where the machine language matches what I'm saying to some code to actually run through and think about the presentation. So when I said open, it's launching the app, and then when I'm saying, do you offer skiing or do you offer running or climbing, it's looking for an activity there. And so if I hop into the skill definition here, what I will point out is that, so here's our interaction model, and we have these intents, and the intents themselves are listed here. So this is where I can start to say, okay, there's the launch intent, but there's also my adventure intent. And what it's doing is actually saying, okay, let's have a look at that. It's saying, do you do, what type of, blah do you do? Can I go? So I'm putting all the phrases that I might say, and then the machine learning is actually working out how to relate that. And, if my demo worked well, it wouldn't have, maybe I wouldn't have mumbled and it would have actually understood me. But, Zoran, any comments on this? I mean, you've played around with, chatbots and things before.
Yeah, look, I guess from for people that are familiar with kind of how the whole language interface works, this should be fairly common. I guess my question to you, especially when we're starting to bridge or to start the interface with AEM, or I should say Experience Manager, how much of that content that we just saw in the app is actually coming from Experience Manager?
Yeah. So the good news is, all of the content.
How much of that? Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more. I guess it's the question, like how much flexibility do our customers, or will our customers have in controlling aspects of the Elixir skill through AEM? So it's good. It's good to see that it's pretty much everything, or can be everything.
Yeah, and what I want to really show, if I hop back into the screen share here, is that the intent is that you build your skill how you would normally build it. So there's no like Adobe way to go and build an Alexa skill. You go and build that. But when you're ready to actually go in and edit this, this is when you can start to very easily bring that content in. So for those who don't really get into coding, bear with me. I'm just going to explain some of the details, and then we'll get straight into content management. But to link what you just saw in the skill, so remember I said, open the skill, and so I launched it. And then I said, tell me about an activity such as skiing or climbing. For each of these intents, there is a corresponding piece of code. And so this is the launch code here, and it basically says, okay, does this piece of code handle that launch request? If I go down to the adventure one, it's saying, do you handle the adventure intent? And so that's how we link the different blocks of code, blocks of logic here with the invocation. So up until now, everything is just in Alexa land. There's nothing to do with Adobe. But let's have a look at this now. So the key thing is when I say open the weekend app, it's trying to pull back a few things. It's after first of all a voice response, and that's the same whether it's a screen-based echo or if it's just a like an echo dot or something without a screen. So we need a response for the voice, and then we also optionally need a screen with an image and a title. And so simplistically here, if you go and do a hello world, build a skill, you'll pretty much see exactly the same code, but the difference will be that this speak output here where it says return a response, you would normally just go in and put in a phrase here. So I would say hello, and I'd be hard coding this into the app. And of course, if you want to change the greeting, I've got to go and open up the code. I've got to go and deploy that code and make all those changes. So the idea is that we want to, extract all of that out to into our content management environment, and that's where Experience Manager comes in. So let's again look back at that first skill and that first invocation. So if I go back into my test here, and the reason I'm not showing you on the device, it's just easy to see it on the actual display. But if I say open weekend, I'm now running that launch intent, and we'll see here.
Hello and welcome to weekend.
So that's our voice response, and then we've got this image here. It intentionally has a gray, it's faded back in the background, and then I've got this piece of text here. So let's move over to Experience Manager. Immediately here, I can see the exact same content, but I'm in content management world here. So if I want to make any changes, so if I want to say, hello and welcome to weekend, you crazy live streamers. I'm available for copywriting if you need something, but let's just save that, and then right here I can say publish that as well. And so of course I can go through workflow, I can have that permission base, but as simple as that. If I go back into my device and let's just restart the test, open weekend.
Hello and welcome to weekend, you crazy live streamers.
Live streamers. Okay, well, we won't comment on Alexa's pronunciations, but Zoran, what do you think?
I think that's great. Just having the ability to change the content quickly is amazing. First of all, is one question that I have for you is, could content authors be able to kind of preview how this would work before publishing, right? Because in case people want to make sure that things like crazy live streamers versus crazy live streamers is going to be is correct.
Yeah, and of course you can have a preview view of this within Experience Manager. There's some samples that we've seen in the past where you can have the pronunciations live in a browser and preview that. And of course you could also externalize this feed and test it on a device before it's actually published out. So a few things there. But how about we walk through, okay, what's the process to get to this point, right? So mostly in Experience Manager. So I want to get my code to actually pull from Experience Manager. So let's go and look at that. So first of all, how did I get to this point where I have these properties here? Well, let's just duplicate this field, this tab, and let's just go right into the settings. So if I go into assets here and scroll into content fragment models, this is where I'm defining basically the contract between what an author can produce and what's available. And we'll talk about, how I distribute this later on, but if I look at this announcement here and edit it, this is a content fragment model, and it has various properties that I can go and create. So if you're new to content fragment models, the idea is that you have data types that you can just go and drag and drop and bring that on the screen here. You can give them properties, etc. Sorry, I'm dealing with a few invisible windows, which I'll just move away. And then you go and put various parameters around this. So as an example, is this a required field or not? Default values. Now, increasingly important is we don't want just a label that our authors can see. We want to make sure that we can reference this and make sure that it's valuable. So let me get rid of the number. But Zoran, what do you reckon? What should we drop into here?
Well, you already have a content reference. How about an enumeration? It's right there on the mouse.
Okay, so let's put a promotion and say, is there a promotion? All right, and then we can say some options and say, no, we'll make this simple. Alrighty, and we'll make that required, and that looks good. So we've just updated our model now. So the idea is that, again, no coding, come in here, create a content fragment model, and see how that works. Now, by the way, while I'm in here, if you are familiar with content fragment models, there have been a whole bunch of enhancements. But one thing, a lot of people aren't aware of is that you can actually go in and click on any of these and check the references. So, which models, which fragments are actually based on which models, and, go and have a look at that. So we'll come back and look at these, a couple of these a bit later. Let's get back to our greeting here. So if I refresh this now, you'll see that we actually have a new item here. It's a promotion. It's asking if I've got an item. Now, this doesn't break any existing fragment, but of course, when you edit it, it says, okay, there's a new required field. So the idea is I can go in here and quickly define, okay, my announcement, my spoken message, a reprompt is something that Alexa will do if you don't respond. And then, of course, I can browse and choose an image. What this is ultimately producing is JSON code or JSON output. And this is the default, if you select all effectively, response to the content fragment model or the content fragment itself. Zoran, I know you've done a bit with, obviously over the years with Headless and, building custom Sling models, etc. How different is this compared to what you had to do before?
Oh, look, it's night and day, to be honest. Whereas in the past, we would have to pretty much build all of this, or how to interpret this content from scratch or by hand. Now Experience Manager does it for us. So as soon as we create that content fragment model, this JSON output is available. And one I guess very important thing for API developers, or especially people that need to consume APIs, there's now ways to limit or be very specific about what type a certain reference field is. So there was a content reference in your model, and Mark, like if I'm a developer that needs to consume this API, I really want to guarantee or be confident that reference is going to be exactly what I need. So, Mark, do you want to quickly touch on that, maybe?
Yeah, well, you can show it while I bounce around. So, do we want to go and add that? So let's go into our announcements. Yeah. Let's add a fragment reference. So we mentioned the promotion before. So what if I actually had a promotion that I wanted to link to? So rather than going and recreating that content, I can just bind to that here. So what I'm doing in the model is I'm saying, okay, which fragments or which models do I allow you to link to. So we can say offers, and then we can start to do a few things. So make it easy for the user to select, where I'm searching for that. So I'm going to go straight into weekend, into my offers here. So that will be the route path. And there's a checkbox here to say allow fragment creation. So the idea of that is that if I'm creating something now, I can write within the content fragment, click new, and go and add something and then come back, rather than closing it, creating it, coming back, linking to it. So it just makes it a lot cleaner. And then of course I've got to give this a let's just call this promotional offer. And I don't know, anything I've missed, or are we looking good?
I think we're looking good.
You're happy with that? Okay. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Very happy with it.
All right. So again, if we go and refresh this now, of course, you might be thinking, okay, does this mean someone can come and change the models at random? It's all permission based, so you can lock down, who has permission to change the model or update the model versus who can create content. But if I open this up now, you can see I can link to a promotional offer, and if I go and select one here, that's there. Did I not save this before? I probably didn't. Let's hit save. If I go into my output now, here is my promotional offer right here. Become a VIP, subscribe to our newsletter. So fairly easy to bring in content and manage it that way.
I think this is great.
And then there's one thing, again, this is a new enhancement. If I hit edit, I can bounce straight into that content fragment as well to make a change. And then when I close it, it should have come back. Anyway, the intent is that it breadcrumbs down into the fragment for editing, but you can check that out. All right, so I've got my fragment. I've got some content there. As far as outputting the content, let me just store this query for later on. But again, now if we switch into front-end developer mode, so let's assume for a moment I know nothing about Experience Manager. I can come to this URL, or I can use my favorite tools like Postman or something like that, and I can now query the GraphQL endpoint. And so if I come into here and look at the query types, it's automatically creating, it's self-documenting all the different schemas for my content fragment models. So if we go and look at our announcements, you can see I've got announcements by path, or somewhere here there should be an announcement list. Here it is. All right, and then it says, okay, so what do the results look like, and then what can I filter on? So I can say, okay, show me here all the items, and it now shows me that I've got an announcement, a promotion, a reprompt, etc. So I can start to build my query and start to say, okay, give me the announcement list, and then let me get all the items, and maybe we'll grab the announcement itself. We'll make that pretty, and we'll run that, and you can see that's the response I get. So from a front-end dev perspective, I'm just getting exactly the information I want, nothing more. So the payload is lean. And I get the warm and fuzzies because I don't have to deal with this big monstrosity schema. I can just get the content I want. So Zoran, perspective?
Yeah, look, arguably compared to what we used to need to do in order to even get to this stage, was mountains of work, and just by me being able to query about the stuff that I want really means that, well, first of all, I'm optimizing my output, so I'm only asking for the things that I need, and I don't have to worry about everything else. But because this is GraphQL, it is so widely used in today's development it's second nature to write a query like this. So there's nothing new specific to AEM to learn. Right? It's just pure GraphQL queries, and the fact that I can dive a little bit deeper into the actual query and see what the structure looks like, see what fields are available to me, means that I can write these very, very quickly. So yeah, wins all around.
Well, I think the key thing is if you're in a project and you don't have AEM skills, you can still get things done. You don't have to wait for, okay, someone's going to go and build something for me. You can, self-serve and get that content. So,
absolutely
very useful. Everyone wins. So, all right. So then let's go to the last step here. So I've got this output now. Let's go back to the code. And to clean things up, I created a couple of things. So let's first of all look and say, okay, when I ran that request, it's asking for here the launch request. I've created a handler down here, and what this is doing is calling a generic GraphQL library. I'll talk about an Adobe option a little later, but this nothing proprietary to Adobe here. This is using standard GraphQL client, and of course you can use a Polo or whatever you want. I went and grabbed this as an option. And so we're defining an endpoint, which I've got tucked away in a properties field, where my lazy code here is just defaulting some options and then running that GraphQL query. So in this case, I'm saying go and grab that announcement, the greeting content fragment directly via path. Give me back just these properties. And then again, I'm renaming a few things just in a very lazy way. And the reason for that is that there's some expected names or property names within the template within the Alexa skill, which I'll show you in just a moment. But it's effectively go out, run the query, bring it back, and then return that back to the skill, and then that gets sent out. So I'm handling my images, I'm handling my my text, and everything's coming through. So the other thing, the missing piece that you might be wondering is, if we go back to the browser for a second, when I ran this, it's like, how is it actually doing the layout? So there's things called APLs. I think it's the Alexa presentation language. It is effectively like a template, and you pour in the various pieces of content that you're after. So again here, I'm linking to this particular template, and it is, let's have a look at this here. So this handles the layout. So it's looking for a background. So I'm passing in the image URL, and then it's got a container with a title, and so I'm passing in that. So again, this is on the Alexa land. This is all in the the very hello world examples. But what you need to do is pass a payload, which is what I'm doing here, the data source, and I'm passing in my my title coming from that response and the image path. I'll talk about this smart crop in just a moment.
Yeah, so Mark, I've got a question for you on this. So aside from the Alexa specific APL or the way that you need to return the response, the way that you communicate to Experience Manager, I would imagine that translates across basically any sort of voice or visual assistant type of device. Yeah, so I would very easily be able to transfer this into, say, a Google skill.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing really fancy about this. There's the Experience Manager side, there's the Alexa side. There's nothing fancy that just locks the two together. So if you're building a chatbot and it's node based, you can pretty much copy paste this code directly over. If you are, like I built a Swift example for an iOS app, the front end language is different, right? It's Swift, but the principle's the same. It's the same GraphQL call. I just have to use a different library to consume that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. All right, so we've talked about just querying content and being able to make those changes. So let's now talk about reuse. So if I load up our weekend site for a second here and look at this, quite often we're building content for a new channel, but it already exists. And so if I look down here, I can see that there's some articles, but there's also some adventures, such as cycling, skiing, etc. So let's go and look in here. And I'm thinking, great, I want to just reuse all this content. So what's nice is that this content exists already, and my sites team have actually used content fragments to create it. So if I go into here, into skiing, I can see I've got a content fragment model for the category. So skiing, put your boots on, an image, and then if I go into the adventures themselves, so let's come in here. And by the way, there's a few ways to bounce around. Here, if I go into the content tree, I can say, okay, let's show the adventures, and here's my Bali surf trip. And again, I've got again a content fragment model here that has lots of different variations. So if we go back to the site, if I look at the Bali surf camp, there's some detail on the left hand side in the kind of rail. There's content that's split between different tabs, but it's agnostic of the presentation tier. So the idea is that I can just go and pick and choose again what I'm after. So if we go back to our GraphQL view here, again, this time I can say, give me the adventures. So I can say, I'll just grab a list. So let's just say adventure list, and we'll grab items again. And now what do we want? Let's have a look. All right, adventure title. How intuitive. All right, so I'll go and grab that. Okay, so that gives me the list of everything now. And as I mentioned before, I might want to do a query via path. So if I just fast forward here, I'll point out a few things. So if I run this query, you'll see that I'm actually doing a few things all at once here. The key thing to know is that with Graph, you can actually run more than one query on the same request. So rather than running a query and then waiting for the response and then sending another one and having to deal with all that latency, I can just effectively send that through. So a few things I had to work through as I built this example. So let me again show you the experience, and then we'll work backwards through that. So let's do you do skiing?
Undefined, take a look at what adventures we have.
Okay, how about I reset that and let's try that again. Live demos and non-production code, just pointing out the ways to integrate. So let's have a look. Open weekend.
Hello and welcome to Weekend, you crazy live streamers.
Do you do skiing?
Yes, put on your boots and let's get some powder. Take a look at what adventures we have.
All right, so in this case, what I wanted to get was the background image. I wanted a response for the skiing category, and then I wanted to link to any adventures that were in that category for skiing, and that's what you can see here. So again, if we go back to our query, it's exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying, give me something that matches, and you can see down the bottom here, I'm putting in, just for a test, a variable called activity, and that's coming from the Alexa slot as far as the way that the intent is created. And so that skiing is being fed in and running a query, and you can see I'm getting back the put on your boots and let's get some powder. I've got the image for the background, and then I'm grabbing the three responses in here. Now, there's a few things I had to consider as I went through this. One is that initially I was having issues with case matching. So you can see here I can put in some things such as ignore case, and therefore we get a clearer match. I had to go and do some remapping of titles. Now, I could have done this in my code, but it was easier within the response. So the template, if I go back and show you these buttons here, these buttons were expecting to have a particular label on them to actually match. And so in my query here, I was able to go and overwrite and say, go and find adventure title, but actually give me back that as a primary text field, and so on here. So there's lots of things you can do as far as within Graph to manipulate the response. And Zoran, I know you did a bit of digging in this area as well. So any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I'm kind of, as you were talking through this and showing the example, I kept trying to map it to past experiences and how we would have done this in the past. And it was going to take a lot of work to kind of combine everything, filter out the things that we want, ignoring case for uppercase or lowercase, remapping fields like this. The way this is laid out in that example doesn't really do justice to the amount of work that this saves developers to get this done. And I think that's something that's absolutely worth pointing out, is that now you can achieve this with 20 lines of a GraphQL query, whereas in the past that would have taken weeks of development work, testing, making sure that all the edge cases are satisfied.
Yeah, so, and a completely different skill set, right? So my front end dev would be just sitting there waiting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it translates to days and weeks of waiting or lost opportunity to get to your customer much faster. So yeah, it is definitely a game changer.
Excellent. So the other thing too is to think about is that again, I'm reusing existing content. So some of the standard content fragment features that have been there for quite some time, such as variations. I can go in and if I wanted to create a variation just for the Amazon Echo device, I can go in here and say, okay, this is my Alexa variant. And when I hop in here now, I can go and change the titles or do whatever. And in my query, I can say, give me the Alexa variant versus the default master variant as well. So you do have that flexibility of having one content fragment for all my different channels, and then I can just go and update them based on if do I want the mobile version, the Alexa version, the chatbot version, the whatever versions. So really powerful. Alrighty, so that's effectively how we run our query. If I go back to code for a moment, so if I show that here again, this activity request, so again, nothing fancy here, calling my client, calling the endpoint, dropping in my query. So my process is effectively going into Experience Manager, getting the content that I want, running the query, copy pasting the query into my code here, and then I'm getting the responses, and then mapping it back into that template. And I've got some lazy coding here that Zoran's been laughing at me for, but just mapping a few of the properties, and as far as the to-do, I've got to handle some of the exceptions a bit better than what you saw before. But it's pretty good to go with some vanilla Alexa coding here.
I wouldn't say laughing, more like politely encouraging you.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, mate. All right, so a couple of things that I do want to point out as well, as far as how to use beyond just the headless content, is how to take the advantage of Experience Manager. One is around the assets themselves, and if I go into my stock library here, I'll just pick an image at random. Let's just grab this one that we're using on the hero example when I first load the app. Now this is a high-res image, but I want to make sure that I'm getting the right image and only sending down that image and not, a super high res version, or bouncing out to something like Photoshop to go and crop it and resize. So this is where Smart Crop is really helping me. If I go into the renditions here, you'll see that in advance I've created a whole bunch of different Smart Crop properties, and one of them is the Echo Show. And so I don't know if it's visible on the screen, but you can just make out this kind of gray variant of this. And if I go into Smart Crop, you'll see that Adobe Sensei, when we load this image in, is actually working out, where is the key aspect of the image, and automatically applying those crops based on the different presets that I've created. Now, because machine learning is still not better than humans, at least that's the good thing. We keep the machines in check. Sometimes you want to make a creative difference, and that's what's nice about this. It's not a black box that you either use or throw away. If you're not completely happy with it, you can actually go and move, or just slightly tweak, or even resize. So I'm keeping the aspect ratio here, but I might just change the way that I'm referencing that image. And so my Echo Show one here, maybe I want to go in and clean that up a little bit and just hit save, and that is referencing that now. So that's how I can go and reference my images. Now, how do I call them? If I select this here and look at the URL, this is effectively, you can almost treat this like headless assets. I'm using dynamic media here to serve up the image, and it's serving it in the right file format, at the right size and aspect ratio based on that Smart Crop, and it's in this case picking up the Amazon Echo tag as to say get that particular Smart Crop. But there's a whole bunch of things you can do at the end of the URL to say, okay, give it to me in WebP format, give it to me, with unsharp masking set. So you can either have that preset, or you can on the fly request it in different ways. So even if you are using this asset and then you update that front end experience and now you want it in a different file format, that is something you can control on the request, not in advance. So it gives you, again, a lot more freedom. Now, Zoran, we ran into an interesting thing here when we were working out how to bring in the Smart Crop images into the app. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I will preface this with a little bit of this is coming into the GraphQL output more formally. But one of the things that you can notice, especially in this output here, the image reference that Mark's getting is a path to the image. It doesn't really contain any of the Smart Crop information that you would need. But one of the things that I particularly like and enjoy about Experience Manager is that there's a myriad of APIs that can come to your rescue in your time of need. And so what we did with Mark was effectively once we got the path to the image, it was just simply a matter of referencing the image metadata, which you can actually extract as a JSON feed. And that metadata then gave us all the information that was needed to be able to construct that dynamic media URL within the Alexa app, which meant that Mark can actually leverage those the right Smart Crop for the image, knowing comfortably that image has already been processed by dynamic media and where exactly that dynamic media server is located. So it was a customization or to what the GraphQL API provides, but it was such a minor thing in a very simple way to solve that problem.
Yeah, so while it's on roadmap to have dynamic media within the graph response, given that there's other APIs within Experience Manager that you can leverage, like the Assets API, it's quite easy to go in and just quickly, interrogate the image and say, okay, let's load up the metadata. Let's go and look for, a particular property. And you can see in the code here, it's only a few lines to actually say, let's go and get the source path and the metadata path of the image. And then you can see here, I'm basically just assembling the new URL of the dynamic image, and that's loading up. So this helper library is completely reusable. And so if you're looking closely before, when I did that launch, I was just basically getting the image path and then just sending it over and saying, get the smart crop variation of that. So super easy to do and now reusable.
Yeah, no, great.
I just realized I wasn't showing the code when I did that. So let's rewind and quickly just show that. So in the dynamic media, so this is where I'm basically saying the image that you return, append this this request to it. So you'll get the metadata of the asset, and then go and get that response, and therefore I get the Scene7 file response and the domain response from the asset. And then we're appending the echo show to get that particular smart crop for this app, and then calling that out. So I've hard-coded this echo show in here, but if you had different sized devices, you could auto-detect that. If you've got different sized buttons, etc., you could go and select those as well. But really easy to do, and again, that's why I've got a reusable handler here to say, okay, get the image path and then get the dynamic media element of it, or the smart crop from it. Okay, so that brings me to the last part, is we also want to track what people are doing. And so if I'm using Adobe Analytics, I want to make sure that you can understand the responses you're getting from your voice devices as well as your site devices. So if I come over here to my real-time view, what we're seeing is basically all the queries that I've run in the last, it's showing the last 15 minutes. Let's actually change that to the last hour. And so this is my real-time view. So a few, areas that I've caught there as we go through, but, here are my launches, etc. And I can say, okay, this is coming from voice. So really nice the fact that I can use Adobe Analytics to go and pull this information in. And again, this was just using a node library that's available. I've created a wrapper class here to predefine some of the props here, etc. And then calling out to that helper library. And so every time I write a handler, where am I here? I'm tracking, in this case, the launch. And down here, I'm tracking the activity with the activity type coming from the request. So even if I, ask, can I do, I don't know, some random like ice skating, and the weekend product that doesn't have that, we'll at least capture that in our analytics and understand, what users are interested in. And that's I guess some of the work that I'd like to add to this skill later on is to add recommendations. So if I ask for a service or a product that doesn't exist, then we can respond with that as well. But at least we're getting the data back and understanding, exactly what's happening with our users. So overall, fun experience. For me personally, it was more around learning how to work with Alexa and working with skills. My echo is actually lighting up every time I mention her name, so I'll just put her on mute. And we still say her, even though it's a machine. But so it was really understanding the skill set and then how to manipulate the responses without building any custom code or deployments here. So from coming at this cold and using Experience Manager, using cloud service, I was able to spin up an environment with without talking to anyone. Just press a button, going in there without any code deployments, going in and defining some content fragment models, creating the content for it, querying via the API. You could do all of this within a half an hour. So it's not taxing as far as allowing people to start doing content management within AM. So Zoran, any other things before I wrap up with a few links to share?
I actually just wanted to quickly touch on the analytics piece as well. Not to take away from all the great stuff in Experience Manager, but for customers that also have Audience Manager, through that analytics call, you can actually pass on information directly to Audience Manager, just as you would in your website or your mobile app. And I guess one very interesting thing that I noticed because of the live demo glitches, those undefined requests were actually showing up in the analytics result, which or report, which is great, because then that allows you to understand where customers might have gone gone a little bit awry, or where Alexa didn't really understand. So you can go back and fix that. Which is really powerful when you think about the logistics and the process of it all.
Yeah, and
yeah,
from a marketing perspective, understanding what people are looking for, and potentially creating offers for that. Yeah. So yeah, good. All right. Well, a few things just to share. So there is, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger. So the Adobe team are working on a headless client. It's open source and you can start looking at there. I'm just about to go and look at that. I deliberately wanted to use something non-Adobe to show you the open nature of this, but of course the idea of this library is to make it easy to quickly go and create a connection and create the responses. Now again, this is not mandatory. You can use whatever library you want. If you want to use Apollo, you can. You want to custom grow your own connection, you can. But this is just another example. I believe that there is a JavaScript and a Java version of this at the moment, and because it's open, feel free to comment and give feedback on that. The other items here, there is a nice headless tutorial that walks you through this at a self-service pace. So feel free to go and have a look at this, and I'll put all these links in the notes so you can go and grab that and have a look. I've shared everything that you've seen today, so feel free to go and grab this as an example. And if you like Zoran, you can politely encourage me to fix things and make them better in my code. But if you're looking for an example of how to go and write a query and call out to that service, I hope that that's a great a starting point. And then finally here, I just wanted to point out that there's a Skill Builders event on a time zone appropriate for the Asia Pacific attendees. So 1:30 Australian Eastern Time on June 17th. We're running a Skill Builders program, and this is 3 hours of both business level content authoring skills, so no coding, no tech. It's more writing the product and using it, and then a session around for the very technical, the developer audience, how to go and extend and interact. So we're going to cover headless in more detail and a few other topics as we go through, but again, I'll put this link in there. I'd love to see you join me and the team on that time. So Zoran, I think we're almost time to wrap up. All right, so Zoran, I want to thank you again for joining me on the show. It's something I think we need to get back into a routine and do more of. Any topics that you think we should cover in the future? I'll put you on the spot here.
Oh, you are. It's a great question. I've been playing a lot with forms lately, so I think forms might be an area that will be good to explore. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be good. There's some exciting stuff coming around assets and content automation, and I think there's lots to talk about there as far as interaction with Photoshop and Lightroom APIs and actually calling out to any service, and lots of other features coming as far as quick site development, etc. So I think it's safe to say we'll be back, Zoran. I think I can count on you to join me again in a future show, and we might even have to rename the show to With Mark and Zoran. But we might wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for watching. If you haven't already, please join the list of subscribers so you don't miss out on another show. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Thanks everyone for watching. See you next time.